Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 2CTV, your global news channel. I'm Maya 2C and this is the latest news update from the United States and Washington DC over the last few hours. You might have already heard on social media of what I would call an evil and murderous assassination of two Israeli officials in Washington DC. They were linked to the Israeli embassy, but there were also innocent people who were just getting on with their lives, and they were targeted by a communist anti-Semite who started shouting pro-Palestinian nonsense. And this is the global intifada that the pro-Palestinian movement have been chanting about for the past year and a half. Of course, we're going to give you guys all the information that we have so far. It's still an ongoing development in terms of the investigation from the police in DC and the reaction from the president as well. We're going to get your reaction in the live chat. These are the scenes that we saw after the attack happened. We have the identity of the attacker himself, but the first video we're going to show you is the aftermath. Dozens of police officers were on the scene following the deadly shooting near the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington DC. The authorities did confirm that the two Israeli embassy staff members unfortunately were killed by the suspect, who shouted "Free, free Palestine" before he was apprehended by the law enforcement. Let's go to the first clip. Let's not forget, this is the failure, complete failure of the authorities across the Western world, whether you're talking about the United States, different states, Canada, the UK, France. We've been trying to warn them that the people who come on the streets and march and chant globalized intifada, they are directly inciting violence. We know exactly what globalized intifada means. They want to target the Jews on a global level in every country, like in 1930s, all over again. And when you know there are people who are inciting violence, when you know there are people who are coordinating attacks, the best thing you can do is use your intelligence services and the authorities to find out who they are. And once you find out who they are, you arrest them, you investigate this, and you keep it completely shut down. Now, of course, that's not going to happen because of the fact that they say the left and the Islamists, they have free speech. If you criticize it, you don't have free speech, you're the bad guy. So that's happening. This is unfortunately, we can actually confirm the two victims here, identified as Yaron Lishinsky and his girlfriend, Sarah Milgram. Now, these two, Yaron and Sarah, were actually planning to get married. He was planning a proposal in the coming weeks, and unfortunately he didn't have the chance and opportunity to go ahead with that, as both of them who went to that museum, and there was an event that was taking place there. When they came out in DC, they were shot down, dead. Now, it's sad that we have to say it's not really a surprise, right? It shouldn't be like this, but it is. It's not a surprise. And it's going to happen more and more until the authorities, the law enforcement in all these countries, finally wake up that there is a direct and imminent threat to anybody in the West right now who doesn't support the Palestinian cause. This is the suspect, the 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez. The video we're going to show you is of the moment he was arrested and he was being taken into custody by the DC Metro Police. Let's quickly go to that clip, and then we have some more reaction and statement from the authorities as well.
Outside! No.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
Back in the 1970s, the Shah of Iran, before he was taken down by the Islamic occupiers with the help of CIA, he warned the world and the West. He said, number one, if I go, the Middle East will be chaos, not just Iran, the whole of the Middle East, then the world. Secondly, he said, to the Palestinian movement at the time in the 70s, there's only so much you can do and achieve by bullying the world. The Western media at the time, the American media, the European media, criticized him, saying, what do you mean? These lovely pro-Palestinian people, right? So they are bullying the world. They are harassing. They're doing terrorism. There's only so much you can achieve. At the time, he was right. Now, they are achieving whatever they want. Now, Emmanuel Macron, Mark Carney, and all these guys are going to be recognizing the Palestinian state, whatever that means, and Keir Starmer. This is Rodriguez. The attacker of the DC Jewish Museum is a far-left Chicago communist activist affiliated with the Party for Socialism and so-called Liberation. He's been pretty active for years. He's been seen, like when you see that picture, him as part of that group, you would just say, oh, look at him. Just a bunch of deluded left-wing activists. Soy boy, you know, is probably weak. They just talk nonsense. Just leave him alone. Don't leave him alone. Keep an eye on them. They are the enemy within. You can see. One day they could be out on the street technically protesting. The next day, they are infiltrating our institutions in the West. And then following day, they become terrorists. This is what's happening when you decided in the West, the Western systems decided to tame the communist movement. Saying, we've tamed them now, everything's fine, let's just call them socialists. It's okay now. It's not okay. You need to hunt these people down. They are the enemy within. They hate the West, they hate the Jews, and they only want one thing. Their own one world government. This is Yaron's one of his last few social media posts, saying this was obviously on the 10th of May. This week, the Israeli embassy marked Israel's 77th Independence Day, a day filled with deep personal and national meaning. On Independence Day, we celebrate the miracle of the Jewish people returning to their ancestral homeland after 2,000 years. Fortunately, this was the last Independence Day celebrations for Yaron and his girlfriend Sarah. There has been some reaction from the authorities already. The DC Metro Police made a statement a few hours ago. Of course, this attack happened about, what was it, like 9 hours ago, 12 hours ago now. It was quite late. And let's quickly go to the DC Police, the Metro Police, and then we're going to show you Pam Bondi as well.
Chief of Police for the Metropolitan Police Department, and I'll start by expressing my sincere condolences to both of the victims and the families, and also the attendees tonight at the Capitol Jewish Museum. At approximately 9:08 p.m. tonight, we received multiple calls for a shooting in the area of 3rd Street and F Street Northwest. Officers located one adult male and one adult female unconscious and not breathing at the scene. DC Fire and EMS responded, and despite all life-saving efforts, both victims succumbed to their injuries. The preliminary investigation indicates that both victims were exiting an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum located in the 500 block of 3rd Street Northwest when the shooting occurred. We believe the shooting was committed by a single suspect who is now in custody. Prior to the shooting, the suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire, striking both of our decedents. After the shooting, the suspect then entered the museum and was detained by event security. Once in handcuffs, the suspect identified where he discarded the weapon, and that weapon has been recovered, and he implied that he committed the offense. The suspect chanted, "Free, free Palestine," while in custody. The suspect has been tentatively identified as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago, Illinois. Our MPD case detectives are leading this investigation. I will now turn.
Yeah, it doesn't really respond to the ongoing imminent threat. And we haven't received any sort of realization from the law enforcement, again, across all the different states in America, and of course the Western world in general, in regards to any sort of emergency discussions with the governments themselves Obviously, in the US, you've got a federalized system, so each state will be responsible for their own mess, but they need to get the governors involved. But in other countries, like the UK, it's a more centralized country. You need to have the leaders of the law enforcement and the police and everybody and the intelligence proactively calling on the governments and the political leadership to wake up. They are the ones on the ground who have more information on the threat every single day. And yeah, they always talk about the so-called extremists. You know, there's a few thousand Islamist extremists, and they are talking about those who are primarily linked to terrorism. But they don't really keep an eye on all these far-left communist Islamists who might just be protesting. You know, as I said, you look at the photos, oh, they're just out there protesting, just ignore them. Don't ignore them. If you're part of the intelligence services, you have to sort out the security of your country. Anyway, going to the next reaction we have, of course, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States, also came and made a quick statement on what happened. Let's go and watch that.
Mayor, thank you. Chief, thank you. Ambassador, our hearts go out to you and your staff. I spoke to the President of the United States multiple times tonight on behalf of the President. His prayers are with all of us, all of the Jewish community, everyone in Washington, D.C., state, local, and federal agencies, and our great U.S. Attorney, Jeanine Pirro, who will be prosecuting this case, will be doing everything in our power to keep all citizens safe, especially tonight our Jewish community. Our prayers go out. We have the FBI. All of our federal agencies will work hand in hand with you, Chief, as we have done, and you, Mayor, to do everything we can to keep our citizens safe. We will follow the facts. We will follow the law. And this defendant, if charged, will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Yeah, Kash Patel and the FBI in general, they've also responded that they will be on top of this to do more investigation, which is good. We did have a quick reaction from the president saying these horrible DC killings based on obviously anti-Semitism must end now. Hatred and radicalism have no place in the United States of America. Condolences to the families of the victims. So sad that such things as this can happen. God bless you all. That was the president. And then, obviously, we also had Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, saying we condemn in the strongest possible terms the murder of 2 staff members from the Embassy of Israel in Washington, D.C. Our prayers are with their loved ones. This was a brazen act of cowardly anti-Semitic violence. Make no mistake, we will track down those responsible and bring them to justice. Now, when it comes to the federal government in the United States, I do have full confidence that they will be on top of this compared to other countries. And the way Marco Rubio and Kash Patel and all the others have been talking about this over the last few hours, is that they would probably do what I said, which is you need to go and do a deep investigation to every other person who's connected to Rodriguez, because they are part of all these socialist groups and movements. You have to find out what other coordination has happened. And what could happen in the future. You need to be able to prevent this from happening in the future. And the justice system, which is not really in the hands of the federal government directly, we now just have to hope that they will be allowed to do what they should do in regards to a proper punishment, because this is not really just to punish Rodriguez as the attacker, but to prevent him from doing that in the future. Someone like him, who has been a socialist for a long time, and anti-Semitic, obviously, goes hand in hand. He's not going to, for example, be rehabilitated. He's not going to go, well, let's send him to jail for a few years and then he's going to come out and let him go out in the public. No, he's always going to believe in that. You need to keep him away. Just keep him out completely. Well, keep him in, because he's going to do it again. Now, there's a reaction from the Prime Minister's office in Israel as well. They have now confirmed that Netanyahu has ordered to step up security measures at Israeli diplomatic missions worldwide after the attack happened, saying, obviously shouting Free Palestine. And Netanyahu is now instructed to enhance security arrangements at all Israeli, not just embassies, but just the diplomatic mission bases everywhere around the world, to increase the protection for state representatives, because again, the Israelis are on their own. They have to sort out their own security because they can't really rely on the other countries to help them out. So, of course, the Israeli embassies in so many other countries and the diplomats everywhere, they have to all be protected. So it's the Israeli government are taking responsibility, saying, well, if you're not going to be safe on your own in Germany, in France, then we're going to have to basically spend more money because the French authorities, for example, won't do that. It's a very tough situation for all Jews around the world, and it's not really just about the Jews, it's anybody who also supports the right of the Israelis to live and have a country. There's some reaction. We got Ivan in the super chat, thank you very much, saying this is only going to get worse worldwide. Scary. Yeah. Well, we've seen some weird things, even in Berlin, for example. They are going around over the last few months again, drawing Star of David on the doors of the Jews who live in certain residential areas to identify them as Jews. There's also some attack just happened again. This is, we're getting some breaking news from Germany, actually Berlin. An 11-year-old has been stabbed in Berlin outside a school. Suspect identified is still at large. This is the breaking news that's just happening now. It's a shocking attack that's happened mid-morning, just a couple of hours ago in Berlin. And we are just getting some more information on this actually while we are here. Let's find out what's happening in Berlin. The boy has been rushed to the hospital and is now undergoing emergency surgery. Authorities say that they know who the suspect is, but the individual has not yet been caught. The homicide unit is also now investigating, and detectives are already interviewing teachers and schools and students in Berlin. The police haven't shared the motive yet, but one thing is clear: this was not a random incident. It was a targeted attack. I believe I can show you a couple of pictures that we've just received from the attack in Berlin. Just double check this before. Yeah, okay, so this is the first picture. Of course, everyone's slightly concerned about what's actually happening right now in the capital of Germany. We will bring you guys more information over the next few hours as we receive them. As we said, the suspect apparently is still at large, and the police are hunting them down. Ivan also says it's time that the authorities saw the clear and present danger, but will they wake up? As I said, it is the responsibility of the authorities to brief the political leaders properly and regularly, because it's their job and they tend to do it. It's the job of, for example, in the UK, you've got GCHQ and MI5 that are regularly in touch with the Home Office to tell them that, for example, how many thousands of Islamists you have on the streets, and in terms of extremists and potential terrorists. But that sort of list is not really doing much anymore because you also have to brief the Home Secretaries and Homeland Security in terms of the imminent threats. And people say they're doing their job, but it seems to be quite difficult when the political decisions from the government and politicians are making it harder by keep bringing in people, open borders, which is adding to that list. Vinny says, such peaceful lefties, the right are not wrong. Vinny's correct. MT says, I am sure this has nothing to do with the quietly retracted 14,000 babies are going to starve in 48 hours lie that the BBC, ABC, NBC and others spread. It's fascinating how it's not, again, we have talked about this for a long time about the mainstream media getting their numbers from an unverified source, Hamas, without checking. The numbers have been going up and down for some reason. At the beginning of the war, they were like, 50,000 people died immediately. Then that number went down to 30,000. Then it went back to like 70,000. Then it went back to 40. Some people apparently come back to life in Gaza. And now they've been saying that everyone's going to starve to death within 2 days, right? Then we discovered, as we showed you before, there are new burger places and fast food restaurants being opened in the east of Gaza and the west as well. They got a shopping center that's now still flourishing. Not the whole of Gaza has been flattened, by the way. So they still got the areas that the civilians could go to, and they got new burgers in Gaza. It's not for everybody. There are people who've been displaced, many of them, who had to move left and right, because obviously the IDF keeps saying you have to move north, you have to move south, you have to go left, you have to go right. But the others in Gaza, they have the facilities. It's not every single person in Gaza who's been killed or displaced. Matthew says, because it happened in DC, all prosecution is handled by the US Attorney for DC. Of course, yeah. Charges can span from terrorism, hate crime, murder, and crimes against a diplomat. Yeah, I mean, the guy is done. This guy is going to be in massive trouble because President Trump is going to have to make an example of him. And it did help for the federal government and the White House that they have all the, again, facilities in DC, and the jurisdiction is in DC. So we'll wait to see where the investigation goes. YouTube blocks everything I'm trying to say. Great. Well, we got this, so yeah, I don't know what you were trying to say. There we go. What's this? Israeli deep state supports Hamas. Well, there was a point. Because if you listen to Netanyahu has been warning about the deep state in Israel. And they were an element of so-called deep state in Israel, and it's not so-called, that there is deep state in Israel, obviously. They were an element of this bureaucracy that's been making things very hard. An element of the Israeli state that decided about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, to allow Hamas to basically divide and destroy Fatah. It was in the interest of these guys, right? It was in the interest of the Israelis to make sure that you divide and conquer. You got enemies right next door, and they thought that Hamas is never going to be that much of a threat. Hamas is just going to be a bunch of idiots. So when Israel left Gaza, they're like, okay, let's just let these guys have it. We're just going to keep an eye on them. They thought that Hezbollah is still going to be the major imminent threat, and that was a big mistake. Allowing Hamas to destroy Fatah, yeah, risky move, right? Backfired massively. And it happens all the time, by the way. Every single country and government uses enemy of an enemy as a friend strategy. The problem with this was that they completely failed to take Hamas seriously. And Hamas spent 20 years building their tunnel network. They got support from some people in Egypt. They got a lot of support from the Islamic Republic. And there is also the issue that just because an element of the Israeli state were pushing for Hamas, doesn't mean every single person in the Israeli government was supporting that. The Israeli government has been divided for the past 5 million years. So it's not like, it's fascinating. The anti-Semitic idiots, they believe that all Jews and Israelis are always united on everything. They agree with each other on everything. No, just go to the Knesset. Just go to Jerusalem. Just have a conversation with the politicians and their staffers. Then you find out. Nobody can agree with one thing. Everybody's all over the place. But they have one thing in common, that they would do anything to keep their country safe. Now, there is a non-super chat. Lily says, these idiotic protesters don't talk about Yemen, India, Sudan, Nigeria, where Christians are being butchered. Why? Because Jews are not involved. Gaza and the West Bank belongs to Israel, or Judea and Samaria. Yes, of course, no Jews, no news is still a thing. None of these people really still care. Right now, as we speak, in Somalia and in Sudan and in Yemen, as we speak, chaos for civilians, for ordinary people. They don't tend to care. And you also mentioned the Christians in Nigeria, all the things that we report on this channel, and they refuse to acknowledge because they are sheep. And they go with what the mainstream media reports. And the mainstream media is not reporting on all the other things that I mentioned. So they don't care. But even if the media reported that, they still don't care. Because the Jews are not involved. They consider the Jews and the Jewish nation as the same as, for example, the Western countries like the US, Canada, the UK. They basically say, that's what they say, oh, the Jews are white colonizers. just go and look at the diversity, the ethnic diversity of the Israelis inside the country. Apparently they're all white, right? And that's why, and because Israel and Israelis are technologically advanced, they are clever, they are very good with science, and they made their country. When the Jews returned to the land, and in 1948 onwards, when the state of Israel returned, since then, we had an issue where most of the land that the Israeli went to was the land that was not built. And even the part of the original plan was they gave the so-called Palestinians, basically the Arabs, who didn't want to be part of Israel. A lot of them wanted, some of them stayed. The Arab Muslims, they're Israeli. But the others who didn't want to, from the river to the sea guys, they gave them the chunk of the land that was already built. So Israelis went to the empty bits and they started building. And since 1948, because they used democracy and free market capitalism and technology and good education, the country is flourishing already. Only after a few decades. Actually happened quite quickly. And since then, you have a situation where because they are successful, and because they have made a great country, they are being accused of being the oppressor and basically like, oh, white Westerner. Because they associate success and power, good education, with the West, the Western imperialism, and they assume, it's a left-wing mentality, like, well, just because you're successful and smart and powerful, that means you effed over somebody. Somebody was effed over, and that's how you are successful as a country. It's completely messed up. Super chat from Russell, thank you very much. Verena says, the Jews returned to their land and have done more than any Arab living there for centuries. Exactly. I mean, you look at the tribal mentality of a lot of the third world, whether you're talking about, for example, parts of Central Africa or even East Africa and the Middle East. Let's talk about the so-called Palestinian territories. You have an opportunity to make your land great, and you don't, because you rather stay low so you could blame your problems on somebody else. Gaza was free for 20 years, for 18 years, between 2005-6 to 2023. And they could have done so much. They didn't. They couldn't, because they're not organized. It always goes back to your culture and to your mentality. Islam doesn't promote organization and prosperity. It goes hand in hand with Marxism, where it's best if you remain poor. It's best if you remain oppressed and the underdog. You know, they always promote more misery and sadness and death rather than actually believing in life and freedom. So you're not going to be prosperous. You're not going to be ambitious. That's why the Persian Gulf Arab countries, what they ended up doing, especially since the discovery of oil and gas and everything else, when money came in, they were like, oh, maybe we should try a different method now. Because money is coming in, let's try and invest in good education. Let's try to actually bring in more business investments. Look at UAE, for example, and many others right now. Then they realize, actually, you know what, let's forget about our Islamic culture that we had. Now, of course, they're still Islamic. They still have certain, because it's hardwired. It's been part of you for centuries and centuries. You're not going to suddenly have the whole of the UAE becoming atheist or Christian. But they are essentially acting, most of them, their middle classes, as secular. They don't really practice. You still got some of the more lower class ones at the outskirts of Abu Dhabi who still basically are backwards, but not the establishment. Tusi, check out Galactic Village Idiot. Okay. And Izzy says, I got my white colonizer shirt from Traveling Lad. I'm not a whiter, but I am Jewish, so I love it and find it hysterical. Thank you, Izzy. And Sanket says, in India, Christians are butchered. not a proof. And for your information, Jews live in India. Before making any allegations, collect some proofs. Lily. I don't know what that was about. And Ivan says Islam just destroys what it touches, including itself. That's the biggest victims of the Islamic ideology are actually those who were born into the Islamic countries. Anyway, we're going to keep you guys posted on this. There's a lot of other updates we're going to have for you guys, including more information on what's happening with Tommy Robinson. Yesterday, we reported that he's once again been charged as he's been released from prison. We have more information on the actual context, but also later today, in about 3 hours, 3.5 hours from now, we're going to go to central London because outside the Israeli embassy, there's going to be a vigil for the 2 Israeli staffers who were unfortunately assassinated last night in DC. We're going to do a live report for you guys from the Israeli embassy in London to find out what is going on. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.